10 years of marriage, a thriving business, and a seemingly perfect balance between work and personal life. To their friends, they were the ideal couple. But lurking in the background was a shadow, a man named Jacob. He was always around, always towing the line, always with that smug grin that set off alarms. For years, the husband chose to ignore it. Until one night, curiosity got the best of him, and he decided to check where his wife really was. What he discovered shattered his world. Betrayal, deception, and revenge. How far will he go to reclaim his dignity? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now, let's get started. In both our personal and professional lives, my wife and I are deeply intertwined. We've built a successful small business together, effortlessly balancing our work and home life. Friends often joke about how smoothly we get along, rarely having serious disputes. Despite one lingering issue, our business thrives, our marriage remains strong, and we continue working toward a shared future. For the past 10 years, we've spent nearly every day together. Every so often, my wife would see Jacob, sometimes during birthdays or holidays, other times just sporadically throughout the year. She maintained a friendship with him, something I was fully aware of. I never considered him a threat, especially since she had assured me that their past romance had long since ended. Whenever they met, it was usually for a quick coffee or dinner to catch up. Strangely, I was never included. He made a point to keep these meetings private, not even mentioning them to his own family. However, there were occasions when we all met as couples, or when my wife and I would join him for a meal. During those times, he was cordial, engaging in small talk about business and shared interests. I tolerated him solely because of Melody. It always puzzled me why she kept in touch with someone who had repeatedly betrayed her trust, cheating on her multiple times when they were together. From what she had told me, he treated her terribly, yet she still made excuses for him. He even bailed on plans we had arranged, agreeing to come over for a barbecue, only to cancel at the last minute, something that happened more times than I cared to count. Her unwavering loyalty to him became even more evident after he suffered a severe motorcycle accident. She spent months caring for him, making sure he ate, bathed, and had his home in order. Initially, I tried to overlook it, trusting her judgment, though I strongly disagreed with her devotion to someone who had repeatedly wronged her. She was quick to advise me to cut off friends who disrespected me, yet when I pointed out her hypocrisy regarding Jacob, she had little to say. The man had a reputation as a player, and his behavior hadn't changed. He often shared crude, inappropriate stories, especially in Melody's presence. She would dismiss it with a laugh, saying, "That's just Jacob." But I couldn't ignore it. Then, one day, I saw his name pop up on her phone while it rested on the coffee table. The message he sent was beyond inappropriate, explicitly sexual. He had essentially invited her to join him and a woman he occasionally slept with. I was stunned. I confronted her immediately, making it clear that his behavior was completely unacceptable. She reassured me that she would address it with him and that it wouldn't happen again. She brushed it off, claiming it was just Jacob's usual behavior, harmless and meaningless. I dismissed it as sleazy, but a few months later, I came across another similar message. This time, I couldn't ignore the sick feeling in my gut. When she fell asleep, I went through her messages. What I found left me furious. More inappropriate jokes, more messages where he insulted me behind my back in moments of frustration. I woke her up, went through the texts with her, and made my stance crystal clear. If this continued, she would have to cut him out of her life completely. I told her plainly that his behavior was not only disrespectful to me, but to our marriage. No real friend would speak to a married woman like that. After that confrontation, she distanced herself from him for a few months. Eventually, a year passed, and she convinced me to allow their friendship again. Maybe it was because he needed real estate advice and we worked in that industry, or maybe I was just too exhausted to keep fighting about it. Reluctantly, I agreed to meet him for coffee with Melody. At first, everything seemed fine. Yet, I never fully let my guard down. I kept checking their messages, and sure enough, I found more inappropriate remarks from him. That was my breaking point. I gave her an ultimatum. This was it. If it happened again, I was done. She defended him yet again, insisting that was just his sense of humor and that she never took it seriously. I didn't care. I don't care if it's his idea of a joke. I won't tolerate another man speaking to my wife that way. She promised to keep their conversations strictly professional and assured me that their dynamic would change. A year passed, and somehow I found myself back in the same position. I had let their occasional meetings continue, despite my resentment. It remained the only real point of contention in our otherwise happy marriage. I despised him, but I loved her, so I tolerated it. I told myself that, since they only saw each other every few months, it wasn't worth throwing everything away. But then, in the last few months, things started shifting. Their communication became more frequent. Every time he called, her voice changed. She laughed more at his texts, spent more time glued to her phone, and found excuses to leave the house. We had always shared our locations with each other, a decision she pushed for after I came home late a few times from hockey, which made her anxious. I had nothing to hide, so I agreed. But when Jacob moved back to a nearby city for work, I started checking her location more often. One evening, she seemed nervous as she told me she was heading to a friend's house to help organize her closet. From the very beginning, I knew organization wasn't her strong suit, so when she insisted she was in a particular place, I had my reservations. I wanted to trust that she wasn't with Jacob, but something in my gut told me otherwise. When I checked her location, it showed an unfamiliar address. Curiosity got the best of me, so I called to see what she was up to. Her voice had an uneasy edge to it. She claimed she was at a friend's house. "Which friend?" I asked. A brief pause, then she said, "Kimberly." That didn't sit right. "Isn't Kimberly on the south side?" I questioned further. She confirmed but seemed irritated, asking why it even mattered. But I knew exactly where Kimberly lived, and it wasn't where my phone was telling me she was. "Say hi to Jacob for me," I said, cutting her off before she could spin another lie. I hung up. She called back almost instantly, but I let it ring. When she got home later, the weight of her deceit must have hit her all at once. She was frantic, overwhelmed. Her anxiety boiled over until she was physically sick. It wasn't long before we found ourselves in an explosive argument. I told her I was done. As I packed my things, she crumpled onto the floor, gasping between dry heaves. We had a crucial business meeting the next morning with one of our biggest clients, but I made it clear she wasn't welcome. If she showed up, I'd have her escorted out. When I left the next morning, she was still in the same spot, sobbing at my feet. She never came to the office, but my thoughts never left her. Even in that high-stakes meeting, I was somewhere else entirely, my mind tangled in doubt and suspicion. She kept messaging me all day, apologizing for lying but swearing up and down that nothing happened with Jacob. She insisted she only kept it from me to avoid a fight, knowing I wouldn't be okay with her going to his place. According to her, he just needed help unpacking. I tried to push my emotions aside, to be rational about it. But I couldn't stop thinking about Jacob, how he had always been lurking on the edges of our relationship. The comparison gnawed at me. He was wealthy, effortlessly charming, always put together. And no matter how much success I had, I couldn't match him in that way. Had he always been more than just a friend to her? Even in our most intimate moments, that question haunted me. I tried to push it away, but it stayed. The truth was undeniable. I didn't trust her with him. That night, I stayed at work late and told her not to come in the next day. I needed space. The past few days had turned me into someone I didn't recognize, obsessively checking her location, wondering if I was the one overreacting. Was I making this worse in my head? Or was my gut telling me the truth all along? The following day, before heading home, I checked her location again. She was at the house. Without warning her, I decided to go back and talk. When I arrived, her car was in the driveway, her phone sitting on the kitchen counter, but she was gone. I thought maybe she had stepped out for a walk. So I waited. Minutes stretched into an hour, and something felt off. Her purse was missing, but her sneakers were untouched. The keys she would have used to lock the door were gone. She hadn't walked anywhere. Someone had picked her up, and she had intentionally left her phone behind so I wouldn't be able to track her. A sickening certainty gripped me. Jacob's address flashed in my mind. Before heading back to the office, I took a detour. Parking a short distance away, I approached his house just to confirm what I already knew. As I got closer, I saw a large bay window. Through the glass, I saw them. She was curled into him, arms slung around his shoulders, lips pressed against his. My body went cold. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. In that instant, every lie unraveled. I reached for my phone and started recording. They were too caught up in each other to notice, at least until I pounded on the window. They jerked apart, eyes wide with shock and guilt. I smirked. Smile for the camera. On the drive back to the office, my mind raced. How long had this been going on? It couldn't have been just once or twice. The secret messages, the strange behavior, she wanted me to believe this was nothing more than a brief moment of weakness. We were adults. Who just makes out anymore? Even if that were the case, it didn't erase the fact that I had voiced my discomfort with their so-called friendship for years. She had always brushed off my concerns, swearing I had nothing to worry about. She knew this would hurt me. Even her own family and friends had warned her about Jacob, knowing his history. And yet, she did this anyway. Had anything between us ever been real? Did she ever love me? I blamed myself too. I should have walked away the first time I saw the warning signs. But I wanted to believe in her. I wanted to trust that Jacob was just a boundary-pushing friend. The truth was, he had never seen me as competition. He knew exactly what he was doing. Had she ever truly moved on from him? Maybe she convinced herself their bond was harmless, but deep down, she had been waiting for his attention all along. Has anyone else been through this? What do I do now? I hate that I even have to share this. I don't want our mutual friends to find out. Update. 3 months have passed. I've spoken to a divorce attorney. Untangling our marriage has been complicated, especially with the business we co-own. It's been a disaster, but there's no turning back now. For weeks after sending her the official notice, I was a mess of anxiety. She fought back at every turn, disputing my claims and even filing a countersuit for defamation and emotional distress. But the facts were irrefutable. I had all the proof, and she knew it. I had to meticulously compile every text, every photo, every video, anything that could substantiate my case. It was an exhausting process, but there was no other choice. The irony of it all? She was the one who had violated the very agreement we had signed when we decided to build a business together. Melody received formal notice that she had breached our partnership contract due to her infidelity. The letter outlined the specific clause she had broken and the consequences that followed. Effective immediately, her role as co-owner and business partner was terminated. Choices have repercussions, and she should have thought twice before making hers, especially with Jacob. With her exit, the business was now solely mine. As for our home, she never had any legal claim to it. It was purchased under my name, with my father co-signing the mortgage. After spending some time at her cousin's house, she ultimately moved in with Jacob. Conversations with mutual friends only confirmed what I had dreaded for so long. Their accounts painted a picture that, deep down, I had always suspected but had refused to fully acknowledge. She had never truly let go of Jacob. She mentioned him so frequently that even our friends took notice. Rosalie, one of those friends, later admitted she had once warned Melody that if she brought him up one more time, she would tell me everything. Rosalie apologized for not speaking up sooner, but by the time she did, it didn't even matter. I had already begun therapy to unpack the emotional wreckage, working through my own blind spots and forgiving myself for missing all the signs. New friendships and hobbies became my solace, helping me slowly rediscover who I was. Strangely enough, I felt an odd sense of relief. The weight of suspicion and doubt had burdened me for so long, and now, with undeniable proof, I finally had closure. Some of her friends were completely blindsided by the truth, having assumed that our relationship was picture perfect. It's remarkable how unaware people can be of what's really going on behind closed doors. Now, 10 months after filing for divorce, the business is officially mine. The uncertainty that had once clouded my future has vanished. Recently, Cyrus mentioned that Melody had reached out, desperate for a place to stay. Turns out Jacob had been cheating on her all along. The irony is almost poetic. She packed her things and moved back in with her cousin. With no stable income, she's trying to start her own business from the ground up, but since I retained all our clients, she's essentially starting from scratch. Looking back, I see now that I was the engine behind our business success. The structure, the vision, the execution, it was all me. As I rebuild my life, I can't help but ask myself, what was it about me that made me so blind to the truth of our relationship? It's a sobering realization. It's difficult to come to terms with the fact that I misjudged someone I once loved so deeply. Despite everything, my friends have been a lifeline. Some were stunned by the revelations, but they've stood by me, offering their support, whether by lending a hand with the business or simply being there when I needed them most. I can't put into words how much that means to me. Following their advice, I've cautiously stepped back into the dating world. At first, it was daunting, but meeting new people has reminded me that there's more to life than dwelling on the past. I've gone on a few dates, some good, some not so much, but each one has taught me more about what I truly want in a partner. There's someone new in my life now. She's amazing, but we're taking things slow, just enjoying the process of getting to know each other. Life moves forward. What I've learned about trust and communication is now non-negotiable in any future relationship. I won't settle for anything less than what I deserve. This journey has been painful, but I've emerged stronger, wiser. The future feels bright, and I'm ready to embrace whatever comes next. And in the ultimate twist of fate, Melody finds herself right back where she started, single, after her chaotic whirlwind with Jacob imploded. It's almost laughable. The irony is so thick, you could cut it with a knife. This story has come to an end. Life always gives us signs, but are we willing to see them? Too often, we justify others' actions, fear the truth, and cling to illusions. But trust is not something that can be half-hearted. It either exists or it doesn't. Love should not be built on doubt, pain, and the constant fear of betrayal. If someone doesn't respect your boundaries or value you, they're not worth fighting for alone. Sometimes, walking away isn't the end. It's the beginning of a better, more fulfilling life. Take care of yourself, respect yourself, and remember, the best is yet to come, but only if you're ready to leave the past behind. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. He was waiting for her. Seconds felt like an eternity. She said, "I'll be just a minute," and then vanished. The whole apartment was screaming her name, her favorite dress, the wine, the candles. But she was gone. And then came that message, the one that shattered his entire world. How do you survive betrayal when you've given everything to love? What do you do when forever turns into never? This story hits like a punch to the heart. But the worst part is still ahead. You'll want to know how it all ends. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watched this video from. Now let's get started. Joshua lingered by the window, his hands restless as his gaze cut through the inky darkness outside. Tonight was meant to be perfect. He had planned everything down to the smallest detail, an intimate anniversary dinner just for the two of them. The table was carefully set with her favorite meals, the flickering candlelight casting soft shadows across the room, and a bottle of wine stood untouched, waiting for the right moment. Even her beloved dress, the one that never failed to light up her face, was laid out for her. But something had gone wrong. The air in the apartment had grown thick with silence, stretching unbearably with each second that passed. Riley had excused herself briefly, claiming she'd only be a moment in the bathroom. That was 15 minutes ago. A knot tightened in Joshua's stomach as he checked his watch. He called her name, expecting her to emerge with a playful jab at his impatience, but the only response was the hollow quiet of the apartment. A chill crept down his spine. He hesitated, staring at the bathroom door, his pulse quickening with an unshakable sense of unease. Maybe she had simply lost track of time. Maybe. But deep inside, he knew something was off. His heart pounded as he reached for the doorknob, his grip uncertain. He pushed the door open, bracing himself for the sight of her, but the room was empty. A wave of confusion hit him like a crashing tide. Where was she? Then, a faint noise from the living room yanked him out of his spiraling thoughts. His phone vibrated. He snatched it up and read the message from Danny, an old friend. The words on the screen sent his world shattering into pieces. Joshua, I hate to be the one to say this, but Riley's not coming back tonight. She's with Noah. The words struck him like a hammer blow. Noah Mitchell, the golden boy. The man who had everything, wealth, status, charisma, and now he had Riley. Joshua's legs nearly gave out beneath him. No, this couldn't be real. She wouldn't do this. His mind raced, searching for a logical explanation. Had he been blind to the warning signs? When had things begun to unravel? The realization pressed down on him, suffocating. How could she betray him like this? His eyes stayed locked on the message, his body frozen in place. Why hadn't she told him? Why had she chosen to leave like this? His breath grew shallow and his vision blurred. Anger surged through him, hot and raw. With a sudden, violent motion, he hurled his phone against the counter. She was gone. She had chosen to walk away. He dialed her number, his fingers shaking. The phone rang and rang. Each time, it went straight to voicemail. No answer, no explanation. Just an unbearable silence that echoed through the apartment, louder than any scream. The silence spoke volumes. It spoke of deception, of choices made without him, of love that had slipped through his fingers without warning. He no longer knew where she was, and worse, he no longer knew where he stood. His breath came in shallow, uneven bursts as he grabbed his coat, his movements mechanical, his mind drowning in the weight of what had just unraveled. He needed answers, no matter how much they hurt. He couldn't just sit here, swallowed by the stillness of the home they had built together. Stumbling out the door, the cold night air wrapped around him, but it did nothing to numb the chaos churning inside him. Riley wouldn't just vanish, not after everything they had shared. But Noah was different. Noah was the kind of man who made things happen, who took what he wanted without hesitation. And now, he had taken her. Joshua had always been the steady one, working his 9-to-5, coming home to his wife, trying his best to keep their life together. Now, that life was unraveling before his eyes. The deafening quiet of the apartment had been replaced by a relentless ringing in his ears. The world around him blurred, distant and surreal, as though he were merely an observer watching his own downfall unfold. He had no destination, no plan. His feet moved out of instinct, but his mind remained trapped in the moment when Danny's message had turned his reality inside out. How had they come to this? Their love had once been effortless, natural, something that didn't require second guessing. He could still picture the way she had looked at him when they first met, the brightness in her eyes, the way she laughed without restraint, the endless conversations that flowed as if they had known each other forever. He had never envisioned a day when she would simply disappear. Yet here he was, standing at the ruins of their love, watching it crumble before him. When had it all shifted? She had changed, and so had he. Life had thrown responsibilities at them, one after another, until they had become weighed down by the sheer pressure of it all. There had been a time when every detail of their day had been shared, when the smallest touches and glances carried meaning. But that time had slipped away. Gradually, then all at once. Joshua had allowed himself to get lost in the routine, in the grind of everyday life. He had overlooked the subtle cries for attention, the moments when she had reached out, hoping he would notice. And now, it was too late. Now, he was alone, left to face the wreckage of what he had failed to see. His stomach twisted at the thought of Noah, the man who had everything, the man who had just taken the one thing Joshua had never thought he would lose. Joshua had never questioned Riley's devotion, at least not until now. For as long as he could remember, she had always been his, returning to him at the end of each day. But suddenly, an uneasy suspicion took root in his mind. Had Riley found in Noah something she hadn't realized she was missing? Was he everything Joshua wasn't? Was he the kind of man who could take her away? His phone vibrated in his hand. A message from Riley. Joshua, I'm sorry. Hurting you was never my intention. I just needed tonight. I needed to feel alive again. That last word hit him like a punch to the gut. Alive. What was she trying to say? That being with Noah made her feel something he no longer could? His fingers tightened around the phone, his pulse hammering. For a moment he was tempted to hurl the device into the street, to rid himself of the message as if that would erase its meaning. But instead, he forced himself to respond, his hands shaking as he typed. You don't get to do this. You don't get to walk away and then say sorry. It doesn't work that way. He hit send and shoved the phone into his pocket, his chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. The city stretched before him, lights flickering in the distance, but they seemed duller somehow, like stars on the verge of burning out. He had no clear direction, no sense of where to go, only the certainty that he couldn't stay here. Not while his world was crumbling around him. It felt unreal, like he was trapped in a dream he couldn't shake himself awake from. His mind looped through the same painful realization. The woman he had promised forever to had chosen to spend the night with someone else. And there was nothing he could do about it. His phone buzzed again. This time, a call from Danny. Joshua hesitated before answering. Joshua. Danny's voice was steady but urgent. I know this hurts, but listen to me. Riley didn't mean for this to happen. Joshua's stomach twisted into a knot. She's confused, Danny continued. And Noah, he has this way of making people feel like they matter. Just give her some time to figure things out. Joshua shook his head, even though Danny couldn't see him. Time? He repeated bitterly. She already made her choice, Danny. She's with him right now, not me. How do I come back from that? Joshua, Stop. Joshua cut him off, his voice tight with frustration. Don't make excuses for her, or for him. Right now, they're together, and I'm standing here wondering what happened to my wife. Without another word, he ended the call. His hands trembled as he shoved the phone back into his pocket, his emotions threatening to drown him. The cold night air wrapped around him, but it wasn't enough to numb the ache in his chest, the deep, hollow pain of knowing he had lost something vital, something he had taken for granted. And in that moment, he understood. He wasn't just angry, he wasn't just heartbroken, he was terrified. Terrified of what came next. Terrified of the unknown. Would Riley return? Would she even want to? Or had Noah, effortless, charming Noah already won. Joshua stood motionless, staring at the distant glow of the city as his thoughts stormed within him. The air carried a bitter chill, but the shiver running through him had little to do with the temperature. It was the realization settling deep into his bones, that everything was unraveling and he was powerless to stop it. His mind drifted backward, replaying the last few months in excruciating detail. All the moments he had ignored, the subtle ways Riley had withdrawn, the way her laughter had faded, her touch had become less frequent, signs he had missed, warnings he had brushed aside in the rush of daily life. He had believed they were unshakable. He had been wrong. Now all that remained was the wreckage, and he was left sifting through the pieces, trying to understand where it had all gone wrong. His phone screen still glowed with Riley's message. "I just needed tonight to feel alive again." He kept rereading those words, searching for some explanation, some way to make sense of them. Had he truly been so absent? So disconnected that she had to turn to someone else just to feel something again? His thoughts shifted to Noah, the golden boy, the magnetic presence, the kind of man who drew people in effortlessly. Joshua had always prided himself on being the steady one, the reliable one. But somewhere along the way, that hadn't been enough for Riley. Predictability had lost its charm. She had wanted something else, something wild, something untamed, and he had been too blind to see it until it was too late. A fresh wave of frustration burned through him. This wasn't something that had happened overnight. It had been unraveling for months, maybe even longer, and he had let it happen, oblivious, convinced that their love was indestructible. But it wasn't. Nothing was. And now he wasn't even sure if Riley wanted to fix it. His phone vibrated again. Riley's name filled the screen, but this time he felt no rush of hope, only a sinking certainty. With a deep breath, he answered, his pulse pounding, not with anticipation, but with something far worse. A suffocating weight hung in the air, thick with unspoken words and shattered trust. "Joshua." Riley's voice wavered, barely more than a whisper. "I know you're angry. I know you're in pain. But I never wanted to hurt you. I swear." Her words did nothing to ease the storm inside him. If anything, they stoked the fire. "You didn't mean to hurt me," he echoed, disbelief laced in every syllable. "Riley, you've been tearing me apart for months, and I was too blind to see it. You've been slipping away, and I just stood there, pretending everything was fine." A hollow, bitter laugh escaped him, heavy with the weight of realization. How did we end up like this? How did I miss all the signs? Please, Joshua, just listen. No. The word cut through the space between them, sharper than he intended, but he didn't care. He had listened, again and again, waiting for things to change, hoping for something real, but nothing had. "You made your choice, Riley, and I refuse to be your backup plan." She parted her lips to respond, but he stopped her before she could even begin. "No. You don't get to walk away and then turn around like nothing happened. You don't get to leave me in the dark and expect me to be here when you decide you're ready." Silence stretched between them, the static on the line the only sound. Then, a shaky breath, a quiet sob. A part of him ached to reach for her, to soften just enough to take away the pain. But the betrayal was too much. It burned, consuming everything else until there was nothing left but anger and grief. "I don't even know what to say," she admitted, her voice barely holding together. "I wasn't thinking, Joshua. I never wanted this. I never planned for it." Her voice cracked, then softened to something almost fragile. "But Noah, he made me feel seen, like I mattered." Her confession struck like a knife to the gut. His hands curled into fists as a sharp wave of frustration crashed over him. "And I didn't?" His voice shook, but he refused to stop. "I was here, Riley. I was building a life with you, trying to give us everything we dreamed of. And you threw it all away. For what? A fleeting thrill? A temporary escape? She sniffled, her sorrow a quiet tremor over the line. I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. But Joshua had already stopped listening. He realized in that moment that no amount of apologies or explanations could undo what had been done. She had made her choice, and now all that remained were the ruins. I don't think I can forgive you, he admitted, the words tasting like ash. I don't even know if I can look at you the same way. Another stretch of silence. He could hear her muffled sobs, but they no longer reached him. He had built a wall around himself, high, impenetrable, and he had no strength left to break it down. Not for her. Not anymore. I don't want this to be the end, Joshua. Her desperation clung to every word. Please, I'll do whatever it takes. Just give me a chance. Let me fix this. For a fleeting moment, he wanted to believe her, wanted to convince himself that love was enough to piece them back together. But deep down, he knew better. Trust, once shattered, rarely mended, and without it, what was left? His chest tightened as he forced out the words, I'm done, Riley. His voice was steady now, distant, cold. You can't fix this. Not anymore. Before she could respond, he ended the call. The finality of it hit him hard, knocking the breath from his lungs. And yet, beneath the devastation, something else stirred. Relief. He had no idea what came next, no clear path forward. But one thing was certain. He couldn't stay in the wreckage of their love any longer. It was time to move on, to rebuild somehow. The pain wouldn't vanish overnight. He knew that. But somewhere beneath the heartbreak, he understood one undeniable truth. Leaving was the only way to find himself again. And that, above everything else, was the hardest part of all. This story has come to an end. Sometimes we get so caught up in daily life that we stop noticing the people beside us. Love is not just about beautiful moments. It's about effort, attention, and care. Betrayal rarely happens out of nowhere. It grows from silence and neglect. This story reminds us all, if someone matters to you, don't forget to show it every day. Don't wait until it's too late. Learn to speak, to listen, to forgive. Because love doesn't die from fights, it dies from silence. Cherish each other, because losing someone is easy, but getting them back is almost impossible. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. What if the person you love more than life itself is quietly turning your world into a living hell? This is the story of Michael, a man who spent 6 years as a prisoner of someone else's whims. Every time he refused his wife's requests, a chilling silence would take over their home. She didn't yell, didn't start fights. She simply disappeared emotionally, forcing him to break his own boundaries just to win back her warmth. But one day, Michael realized he couldn't live like this anymore. He stopped bending to her will, and that's when the most unexpected thing happened. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now, let's get started. My name is Michael, and today I want to open up about an experience that nearly destroyed my marriage, but also completely reshaped how I think about love and connection. My wife Haley and I had been together for 6 years at that point. Like most couples, we had faced our fair share of highs and lows, but over time I started to recognize a disturbing cycle, one I wish I had noticed much earlier. Anytime things didn't go Haley's way, she would shut down emotionally. There were never any arguments, no heartfelt discussions, no attempts to explain what was bothering her. Instead, she would pull away. From me, from real conversations, from any form of intimacy. At first I assumed she was just stressed or overwhelmed. Maybe she needed space to process something I wasn't aware of. I thought if I gave her room, she would come back around. But as the years passed, it became obvious this wasn't random at all. It was intentional. Every time I declined something she asked for, whether it was something trivial or something important, a favor or a decision, she would grow distant. And I don't just mean turning down physical affection. She would act like I was invisible, cold, and unreachable. And like clockwork, I would take the bait. I hated the way tension would take over the house, so I was always the one to try and bridge the gap. I was always the first to say I was sorry. I would comfort her, offer reassurance, and eventually, just to break through the wall she put up, I would give in and agree to whatever she wanted. And like magic, the moment I relented, everything shifted. Suddenly, she was sweet, affectionate, and attentive, as if nothing had ever happened. Now, when I look back, I see it clearly. Haley had mastered the art of quiet manipulation. She knew exactly how to make me feel like I was losing her without ever having to raise her voice. For years, I convinced myself that if I just worked harder to keep her happy, we'd both be okay. But everything changed because of one moment, a moment that seemed small at the time, but ended up shaking the entire foundation of our relationship. It all began about a week before Haley's birthday. She casually started talking about a brand new luxury spa resort that had just opened nearby. At first, she would drop little comments here and there, nothing too obvious. "Hey, love, did you see that new spa resort? It looks amazing," she said one day. Or, "Sabrina went there last weekend. She said it was the best experience she's ever had." I just smiled and nodded, not thinking too much about it. Haley liked indulging in nice experiences, and I didn't mind that. But as the days went by, she kept bringing it up. Those casual remarks turned into more pointed suggestions. It was clear she was trying to plant the idea in my head, softening me up before she officially asked. I should have known where it was going. One evening, while we were watching TV, she casually slid her phone across the couch toward me. "Look at this place, babe. Isn't it gorgeous? We should definitely go," she said, her eyes watching me closely. I glanced at the screen. It was stunning. A 5-star resort, full spa packages, all-inclusive weekend getaway. But then my eyes caught the price, $1,000 per person. Immediately, my stomach dropped. I knew money was already tight, with bills stacking up, car repairs we couldn't delay, groceries and other surprise expenses. I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words to respond gently. "Haley, I just don't think we can afford this right now," I said quietly. The air in the room shifted instantly. I saw her jaw tighten, the spark in her eyes dim just slightly, but enough for me to notice. It was subtle, but I had seen it too many times before. "So, that's a no?" she asked, her voice flat and empty. I exhaled slowly, trying to stay calm. "I'm just saying, let's wait. Maybe later this year, when things are a bit easier." I wasn't shutting it down forever. I was trying to be realistic, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't matter. Haley let out a short, sharp laugh and leaned back on the couch, folding her arms across her chest. "Sure." "Later," she muttered under her breath, just loud enough that I couldn't miss it. "You always say that." And there it was, the reaction I had come to fear. The invisible wall going up between us, her way of punishing me without a single argument. We finished the show, but she didn't say another word to me, not even a glance in my direction. No confrontation, no explanation. Just that suffocating silence I knew too well. This was Haley's pattern. If she didn't get what she wanted, she wouldn't fight. She would vanish emotionally. And every time, I would be the one chasing after her, desperate to bring her back. I would apologize, even when I hadn't done anything wrong. I would search for ways to fix things, to restore peace, anything to avoid that crushing silence, the way she would turn away from me in bed, making me feel like I was sleeping beside a stranger. But this time, I promised myself I wouldn't give in. That night, as I got into bed next to her, I hesitated. Normally, we had a bedtime routine. I would slide my arm around her waist, and she would lean into me. It was our quiet way of connecting before falling asleep. But when I reached out to her that night, resting my arm gently around her, I felt her body stiffen. She immediately pulled away. "Not tonight," she whispered, her back still turned to me. I lay there frozen. I wasn't trying to start anything intimate. It was just a small gesture, something that had always been part of us. But even that simple touch was too much for her now. But tonight, something felt different. That's when it struck me. This wasn't just another rough day or fleeting tension. No, this was intentional. A cold, calculated silence meant to punish me for not giving her what she wanted. I lay there, staring blankly at the ceiling, thoughts swirling like a storm in my mind. How many times had I been caught in this endless loop? How often had I apologized for things I hadn't even done? How many times had I backed down, bought gifts to smooth things over, or swallowed my pride just to keep the peace in my own home? Too many to count. And that night, something inside me finally broke. I made a decision. I wasn't going to grovel for my wife's attention anymore. I was finished being the first to give in. If she wanted to keep playing these emotional games, she could play alone. Instead of bending over backward to please her, I chose, for the first time in a long time, to focus on myself. For years, I had poured everything I had into keeping things normal between us. Every time Haley pulled away, I would scramble to fix whatever I thought was broken, say whatever needed to be said, just to bring us back to some false sense of calm. Her moods ruled our house, and I had been living under that weight like a man in chains. But not this time. I wasn't going to keep apologizing for things I shouldn't own. I stopped waiting for her to decide when I was allowed to be happy. Instead, I started doing things that made me feel alive. I dragged out my old gym bag, covered in dust and memories, and went back to working out. But this time, it wasn't to impress her or win her approval. It was for me, because I missed feeling strong, like I had control over something. The soreness in my muscles became a quiet reminder that I was moving forward. I even joined a casual basketball game with some coworkers, nothing serious, just a weekly thing. But it felt good. Good to run, to laugh, to be part of something that had nothing to do with my marriage. And then there was photography. How had I let that part of me disappear? Before Haley, my camera was practically an extension of my hand. I used to love capturing fleeting moments, strangers' faces, city lights dancing in the dark. But life had swallowed that passion whole, and I let it happen. Until now. I dug my camera out from where it had been buried and started shooting again. Anything that caught my eye. Sunsets bleeding into the sky, people lost in thought, cracks on the sidewalk. And with every photo I took, I felt like I was reclaiming the man I used to be. For the first time in years, I felt free. I wasn't walking on eggshells anymore. I wasn't obsessing over every look or sigh she threw my way. I wasn't hanging on her approval, waiting for her to decide when things were okay. If she wanted distance, she could have it. But I wasn't chasing after her anymore. And that's when I saw something start to change. Haley had always expected me to be the one to break first, to come crawling back, desperate to make things right. But when I didn't, she noticed. At first, she acted like she didn't care, but I caught her watching me, when I slung my camera over my shoulder and walked out, when I laced up my shoes for the gym. It was like she didn't know what to make of this version of me, this man who no longer revolved around her. Then came the night that flipped everything upside down. Haley had invited Miranda, a newer friend of hers, over for dinner. Normally, I would have sat quietly, let Haley lead the whole night. But not this time. This time, I was engaged, confident even, fully present in a way I hadn't been for a long time. And Miranda picked up on it. "So, Michael," Miranda said, tilting her head, eyes curious. "Haley mentioned you're into photography. You'll have to show me your work sometime." I met her gaze and smiled. "Yeah, I'd like that." It was a small thing, but I could feel the shift in the air. Miranda was definitely flirting, and I didn't shy away. I flirted back, subtle, nothing over the line, but enough to stir the room, enough for Haley to notice. Every time Miranda laughed at something I said, I caught Haley stiffening just a little. Every playful glance Miranda threw my way seemed to darken Haley's eyes. But the real blow came when Miranda stood to leave, gave me a sly grin, and said, "You know, Michael, you're way more fun than I expected. I can see why Haley married you." I watched Haley's whole body tense. For once, I wasn't orbiting her world, and suddenly, she was the one feeling off balance. She was feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time: competition. The next morning threw me for a loop. Haley was up before me, which was unusual enough, but then I smelled something coming from the kitchen, something I hadn't smelled in years. I walked in to see her at the stove, cooking. She turned around, smiled like nothing had happened, and slid a plate onto the table. "I made your favorite," she said sweetly. I raised a brow. "Thanks." I didn't overdo it. I didn't fall all over myself thanking her. I just sat down and ate. Over the next few days, she kept trying. She started putting on makeup, even when we had nowhere to go. She'd ask about my day, laugh at jokes she used to ignore, brush her hand against my arm as she passed, small, calculated touches, testing me, watching to see if she still had control. But this time, I knew how to play. I wasn't giving her the cold shoulder, but I wasn't running to her either. I didn't start conversations or reach out for affection. If she touched me, I barely reacted. If she flirted, I gave her a polite smile, but nothing more. And when we went to bed, I rolled away before she could get close. I wasn't being cruel. I was just done being manipulated. I was merely letting her feel a fraction of what I had carried for so long, and I could see that it was breaking her down. I sat on the couch, casually thumbing through my phone, when she entered the room and stopped right in front of me. At first, she said nothing. She shifted her weight uneasily, her arms wrapped tightly around herself as though holding herself together. After what seemed like an endless stretch of silence, she finally exhaled, a deep and weary breath. "It feels like we're drifting apart," she murmured at last. I looked up at her, saying nothing. This time, I wasn't going to be the one to fill the quiet. She lingered there, unsure, her eyes searching my face. After a long pause, she spoke again, softer this time. "Can we talk?" I placed my phone down and gave a small nod. "Yeah, let's talk." She swallowed hard, like she had to push the words out. "I miss what we used to be. I miss us." Leaning forward, I rested my elbows on my knees, my eyes locked on hers. "Haley, I love you, but I can't keep playing these games." Her eyes widened, her lips parting as if she was about to argue. "Games?" she whispered, almost in disbelief. "Yes," I said, my voice calm but unwavering. "The way you freeze me out. How you pull away whenever I don't meet every expectation you set." I took a slow breath before adding, "That's not love, Haley. That's control." She opened her mouth as though to defend herself, but no words came. She closed it again, and all that was left between us was silence. For the first time, I watched as something in her shifted, like she was seeing herself clearly for the first time. She had always been the one to hold the power, always assuming that if she retreated, I would chase her, eager to fix things. But this time, I didn't move. This time, I let the space stay between us. And now, she was the one feeling it. We sat in that heavy quiet for a long time. She stared down at her hands, nervously twisting her fingers, her whole body tense. Whatever she had expected from this conversation, it wasn't this. It wasn't me standing firm. And she knew that. It was the first small crack in the walls she had spent so long building around us. From that point on, something was different. It wasn't like everything magically got better overnight, but I could sense a shift. Haley stopped using affection as a weapon. The long, punishing silences, the way she would withdraw to manipulate me, all of that began to slip away. Not because I forced her to stop, but because she realized it no longer gave her control. She also stopped dismissing me with a roll of her eyes every time I disagreed. Before, if I ever stood up for myself, she treated it like an act of rebellion, like I was threatening her hold over us. But now she actually listened. We still had arguments, but she didn't act like my refusal to bend was a betrayal. And as for me, I finally understood that I deserved love without conditions. For the first time in what felt like ages, I felt like my voice mattered. I wasn't shrinking myself to avoid setting her off. I wasn't living in fear of her cold silences. By holding my ground, I gave us both a chance to start over. And slowly, our relationship began to heal. Of course, not every relationship has a happy ending like that. Not everyone is willing to change. But if you're with someone who uses love as a reward to be earned, who makes you work for their affection, ask yourself, is that really love? Or is it about control? Because real love doesn't need to be chased. It doesn't punish you. It doesn't make you feel like you're not enough. Real love is given freely. And for the first time in a long while, I finally knew what that kind of love felt like. This story has come to an end. True love is not a game of silence, manipulation, or a constant fight for attention. Love should never make you apologize for simply having your own opinion or setting boundaries. If you have to lose yourself just to keep the peace in a relationship, that's not love, that's dependency. Real relationships are built on respect, support, and honest communication, not on fear of losing the other person. Remember this: someone who truly loves you will never make you suffer to get what they want. Love is the freedom to be yourself. And if you're forced to choose between yourself and love, always choose yourself. Because healthy love starts with self-respect. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. It seemed like Louis had everything others could only dream of: a perfect marriage, a cozy home, and a stable life. But one night turned his entire world upside down. When his wife Nina suddenly brought up the idea of an open marriage, he couldn't believe his ears. At first, he thought it was a joke. But what started as an experiment to save their relationship quickly turned into a betrayal beyond anything he could have imagined. While Nina was out chasing excitement on the side, Louis was quietly preparing a response she never saw coming. This story isn't just about infidelity. It's about how trust shatters, how a betrayed man learns to play by someone else's rules, and how he strikes where it hurts the most. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watched this video from. Now, let's get started. Until recently, I believed my marriage was unshakable. My name is Louis, I'm 38, and for the past 11 years, I've been with my wife Nina, who is 35. We tied the knot 9 years ago, and though we never had children, our life felt full. We owned a charming house in the suburbs, had steady careers, and lavished attention on our 2 dogs as if they were our own flesh and blood. To the outside world, we must have appeared like the quintessential couple, effortlessly happy, the kind people admire on social media. But behind closed doors, our life had settled into a predictable rhythm. I assumed that was just the nature of long-term relationships. I had no idea I was missing something crucial. Everything began shifting 2 months ago. Nina started going to the gym more frequently, spending extra time with friends, and scrolling through her phone late at night with a focus I hadn't seen before. At first, I brushed it off. Everyone needs their own space now and then, right? But then, during our quiet evenings, she began dropping comments that unsettled me. Do you ever feel like we've lost our spark? Or have we gotten too comfortable? Of course we were comfortable. That's what I thought a lasting relationship was about. Stability, security. Wasn't that the goal? I didn't dwell on it too much until one evening when she blindsided me. We were sitting on the couch, the television murmuring in the background. When she turned to me, her eyes alight with an energy I didn't quite understand. Her voice was careful, measured, like she was feeling her way through unfamiliar territory. "I've been thinking a lot," she began. "I feel like we've settled into these roles. Maybe we should try something new." I frowned, trying to parse her meaning. "Something new?" I echoed. "Like picking up a new hobby? Maybe traveling more?" She offered a hesitant smile. "No, I mean our relationship. I think we should try an open marriage." For a fleeting second, I thought she was joking. But the way she averted her gaze, the way her fingers twisted together in her lap, told me she was serious. My brain stalled, unable to process the words. When I finally managed to speak, my voice came out flat. "Why?" "It's not you," she assured me quickly, as though softening the impact. "I love you, Louis. I just feel like something's missing. I think this could bring new energy into our marriage, help us grow." She continued, painting an optimistic picture of how this could work. Honest communication, clear boundaries, mutual exploration. She made it sound like a strengthening exercise for our marriage, but all I heard was that she wanted to be with someone else and needed my permission. I don't know how I kept myself composed that night. Maybe it was shock. Maybe I feared that resisting too strongly would push her further away. So I told her I'd think about it, and I did. For weeks, I dissected every conversation, scrutinized every subtle change in her behavior. Had I become too predictable? Too dull? Or was this her way of justifying something she had already started? By the time I finally gave her an answer, I felt like I was operating on autopilot. "If this is what you think we need," I said, forcing the words out, "let's try it." Her face lit up, her excitement undeniable. "Thank you," she whispered, wrapping her arms around me. "You won't regret this." But regret was all I felt. The following weeks were a tangle of contradictions. Nina seemed revitalized, more affectionate, positively glowing. She dressed up more often, constantly checked her phone, and went out with her friends at every opportunity. Meanwhile, I felt like I was unraveling, trapped in a nightmare of my own making. Every time her phone buzzed, every time she came home later than usual, my mind spiraled. Who was she with? Was it someone I knew? But I played my part, smiling, nodding, pretending we were navigating this together. I even tried to embrace the idea myself. Downloaded dating apps, chatted with a few women. But every conversation felt forced, empty. I didn't want someone new. I wanted to repair what was broken, not add fuel to the fire. Then, one night, Nina came home after midnight, her makeup smudged, her smile stretched a little too wide. As she slipped into bed beside me, something inside me cracked. I couldn't pretend anymore. I needed to know the truth. I began paying closer attention. Her phone habits, the way she spoke about her gym friends, her frequent late nights at work. Slowly, the pieces started falling into place. She hadn't been testing the waters. She had already plunged in. And that's when I realized, if she wanted an open marriage, she was going to get one, just not in the way she expected. Determined to keep a low profile, I set out to uncover the extent of her deception. It wasn't about curiosity anymore. It was about survival. I needed to know just how deep this went before making my next move. Her passcode remained unchanged, a sign she didn't think I'd be looking. Most of her messages had been wiped, and there were no overt signs of dating apps. But one name kept appearing in her WhatsApp history. Randy. Randy was a guy from her gym. I recalled meeting him once at a Christmas party, early 30s, covered in tattoos, exuding the kind of energy that suggested he lived for the gym. Their messages seemed ordinary at first, but the underlying tone was impossible to ignore, compliments that lingered too long. "You looked amazing today. Can't wait for Friday." And then there were the selfies. Nina in form-fitting leggings and a sports bra, posed deliberately, designed to entice. My stomach twisted. She hadn't been asking for permission to explore. She had already begun. And I was done playing the fool. A smoldering heat crept up my spine, but I forced myself to suppress it. This wasn't definitive, at least not yet. I needed concrete proof. So, with a sour taste lingering on my tongue, I started observing her, carefully noting every move she made. Her routine was predictable: office, gym, occasional evenings out with friends. But Fridays were different. She clocked out at 5, supposedly went straight to the gym, yet never returned home until well after 10. My stomach twisted at the inconsistency. One Friday, I parked outside her gym, watching, waiting. She never showed up. Instead, she met Randy at an upscale downtown bar. They stayed just long enough to down a couple of drinks before slipping out together. My pulse pounded as I followed them, my grip tightening around the steering wheel. When they disappeared into his apartment, I remained in my car, torn between barging in and biding my time. I chose the latter. My phone buzzed. A message from Nina. Working late. Don't wait up. By the time she returned home that night, her hair immaculately in place, her alibi rehearsed, I had made up my mind. There would be no confrontation. Not yet. If she wanted to play this game, I would play it better. The following week, I decided to test the limits of her so-called open marriage. It was almost laughable how effortless it was. While Nina spent her nights entangled with Randy, I crafted a dating profile. Not for love, not for validation, but simply for companionship. And I found it. Melody was 28, an event planner with a sharp tongue and a wicked sense of humor. Over drinks, her fingertips brushed against my arm, her gaze locked onto mine. "Should we take this somewhere more private?" she asked. I didn't hesitate. Then there was Phyllis, 31, a free spirit intrigued by what she called the transparency of my situation. Her energy was magnetic. By our second date, she invited me back to her place. I agreed. I never brought up Nina. I owed her nothing. The shift happened on another Friday night, her usual gym session. On a whim, I invited both Melody and Phyllis over for drinks. Risky? Absolutely. But I was past caring. When they arrived, something unexpected happened. They got along. Laughter filled the air, the drinks kept flowing, and soon, the night took an unforeseen turn. For the first time in months, I wasn't the one left alone, waiting, questioning. I had seized control. Nina walked in at midnight, freezing in the doorway. Melody and Phyllis lounged on either side of me, their amusement fading as they turned to face her. "Louis." Her voice faltered, her eyes darting between the three of us. I remained still. "Oh, hey," I said, my tone casual, indifferent. "Didn't expect you home so early." Her face flushed crimson. For once, she had no response. I didn't give her one either. Without another word, she turned on her heel and disappeared into the bedroom. The next morning, she confronted me in the kitchen. "What the hell was last night?" I poured my coffee, unshaken. "Exactly what you wanted. An open marriage, right?" "Not like that," she snapped. "Bringing them here, into our home? Oh, but sneaking around with Randy was fine?" My voice was calm, too calm. The color drained from her face. You knew?" I exhaled, leaning against the counter, my untouched coffee cooling beside me. "I'm not an idiot, Nina. You wanted freedom. Now we both have it." She stood motionless, hands trembling. It was the reaction I had anticipated when I first set out to even the score. But instead of triumph, I felt empty. The damage was irreversible. After that morning, she pretended nothing had changed. She never mentioned Randy, and I never spoke of Melody or Phyllis. We drifted through the days like strangers forced to share a space, silent yet aware of the unspoken chasm between us. It was unsustainable. By Thursday night, the facade crumbled. "Can we talk?" she asked, lingering in the doorway as I watched TV. I muted the screen. "Go ahead." She hesitated, twisting her fingers, a nervous habit I knew too well. Whatever we're doing, it's not working. We're losing ourselves, Louis. A hollow laugh escaped me. Losing ourselves? That's rich. Her eyes darkened. You're not innocent in this. You invited strangers into our bed. I stood, my patience unraveling. And you invited Randy into our marriage. Don't act like you're the victim. Her breath hitched. She stammered, How long have you known? I met her gaze, unyielding. Long enough. Long enough to see through every lie. And you know what? I almost let you believe you had the upper hand. But then it struck me. If you were set on dismantling our marriage, I wasn't about to just sit back and watch. No, I would make sure we destroyed it together. If it was going down, I'd help set the fire. Her eyes widened in shock. You? You orchestrated this? I shrugged, indifferent. Call it what you want, Nina. You insisted on an open marriage, so I gave you exactly that. Not as fun when the game turns on you, huh? For a long second, she simply stood there, rendered speechless. Then, without another word, she spun on her heel and stormed out the door. I didn't go after her. The next day, she skipped work, calling in sick. She locked herself in our bedroom and I let her stay there. But silence was never something that lasted between us. By the time night fell, I knew it was only a matter of time before she confronted me. Sure enough, at around 8, she emerged, her face blotchy, eyes puffy from hours of crying. We have to fix this, she said, her voice unsteady. I didn't even look up from my phone. Fix what? Us, she pleaded. The damage, the trust. We have to repair it. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. You can't rebuild something that's already in ruins, Nina. The foundation is gone. I wasn't the only one who caused this, she snapped. I shook my head with a sigh. Don't. You don't get to play the victim here. You wanted freedom. Well, now you have it. Hope you enjoy it. Fresh tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. A week later, everything reached its breaking point. The moment I found out about Randy, I wasted no time getting a lawyer. It was time to move forward. That evening, Nina came home to find a thick envelope waiting for her on the dining table. She picked it up, a frown forming. What's this? Divorce papers, I said flatly. Her face crumpled as she flipped through the pages. You're really doing this? I'm done, Nina. This isn't fair, she protested. We can work through this, Louis. We can go to therapy. No, I interrupted, my voice firm. We can't. The moment you invited someone else into our marriage, you made your choice. You wanted a way out? Well, here it is. Tears streamed down her face as she begged, as she clung to memories of the good times, hoping I'd remember what we once had. But it was too late. I had spent months gripping onto something that had long since died, only to realize I was prolonging my own suffering. Nina had made her decision, and now it was time for me to make mine. By the end of the week, she had packed up and left. The divorce was long and bitter, Nina fighting tooth and nail for more than what the prenup allowed. She kept insisting she had made a mistake, that she wanted to fix things, but I had stopped listening. I sold the house, severed ties with mutual friends, and started over. But fresh starts weren't as easy as I had hoped. Even with the satisfaction of regaining control, I couldn't ignore the weight of everything that had been lost. Nina moved in with Randy, but their so-called happiness was short-lived. Word eventually reached me. She left him after learning he had been cheating on her too. I felt no victory in that. As for me, I'm still picking up the pieces. Some days are better than others, but if I've learned anything, it's this. You can't move forward while clinging to the wreckage of the past, so piece by piece, I'm letting it all go. This story has come to an end. Any relationship is built on trust, respect, and honesty. Once these foundations collapse, the whole union falls apart. Playing the game of an open relationship won't save love if there's no loyalty or true desire to be together left in the heart. Betrayal, lies, and manipulation destroy not only your partner, but also yourself from within. So before you start looking for something new on the side, ask yourself, Wouldn't it be better to bring back sincerity, have an honest conversation, and fight for real love? Because once trust is broken, it's nearly impossible to restore. Cherish those who are close to you, before it's too late. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.